It is one of the busiest subway stations in Brooklyn. As the gateway to a half-dozen subway lines, the sprawling Broadway Junction transit hub commands a prime location at the crossroads of 6 neighborhoods and serves as the unofficial welcome center in a fast-growing part of New York City. The problem? It is anything but welcoming. The dingy warren of passageways and platforms linking the A, C, J, Z, M and L are so packed that rush hour turns into a crawl. Outside, bus stops and a Long Island Railroad station are plopped down in a depressing terrain of trash-strewn streets, chain-link fences rimmed with barbed wire and panhandlers camped out on sidewalks. "You could do way better than this," said Rudy Fevry, 32, an exterminator who lives nearby. "It's like nobody cares. Now Broadway Junction may finally get the makeover it has long needed." City officials are taking steps to create a destination stop with nearby restaurants, stores, gyms and other commuter-friendly amenities. Their aim is to turn the tired station and the surrounding area into a bustling economic center for a swath of Brooklyn that has long struggled with unemployment, poverty and crime. Broadway Junction sits at the crossroads of 6 neighborhoods that have long been home to mostly poor and working-class residents. The city hopes to create a destination stop that will offer restaurants, stores, gyms and other commuter-friendly amenities. The city's Economic Development Corporation recently began a $200,000 study to identify potential avenues of economic growth in and around the transit hub, including office, retail and educational uses. A group of elected officials and community leaders has also been convened to come up with a vision for the area. The Brooklyn Borough President, Eric Adams, and City Councilman Raphael L. Espinal Jr., a Democrat who represents the area, are the co-chairmen. "This is the time to think about how we can take advantage of this transit hub and turn it into a hub for the whole city," said James Patchett, the president of the Economic Development Corporation. Mr. Adams, a former transit police officer, recalled that he used to walk the platforms of Broadway Junction in the mid-1980s and imagine how much more it could be. "It planted a seed of what if," Mr. Adams said as he stood on an elevated platform looking over the Brooklyn skyline. "There are great possibilities here." The focus on Broadway Junction comes as more people are living in the city than ever before, and once industrial areas have attracted newcomers displaced by rising rents in Manhattan and elsewhere. In the past decade, development has spread across Brooklyn, raising concerns about gentrification among some residents. The Broadway Junction transit hub borders on Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brownsville, East New York, Cypress Hills, Ocean Hill and Bushwick, neighborhoods that have long been home to poor and working-class African-American families but that have increasingly drawn more racially and economically diverse newcomers. In East New York, city officials have rezoned more than 200 blocks for affordable housing and committed more than $267 million to improve parks and infrastructure and to build a public school. In addition, they have invested over $16 million in an existing industrial zone in East New York to attract more companies and jobs. They are also planning a new office complex in the area, which will be anchored by the city's Human Resources Administration. "There's a lot of unused land here, land that could do more, and be more to the community," said Janice Morgan, the chairwoman of the local community board, who is a member of the planning group. "This is the time to think about how we can take advantage of this transit hub and turn it into a hub for the whole city," said James Patchett, the president of the city's Economic Development Corporation. A pedestrian tunnel at the Broadway Junction transit hub. The Broadway Junction transit hub, once known as Manhattan Junction, was built in phases beginning in the late 1800s and renamed Broadway Junction in 1913. Today, it is operated by the Metropolitan Transportation Authority and made up of 3 distinct but connected subway stations, 2 elevated and 1 underground. The last major renovation of the complex was in the late 1990s. Currently, about 100,000 riders pass through Broadway Junction every weekday, making it the 3rd busiest station in Brooklyn, according to the Metropolitan Transportation Authority. Most riders are transferring between the various lines. The complex is expected to become even busier with the planned shutdown of the L train tunnel between Brooklyn and Manhattan in 2019 to repair damage caused by Hurricane Sandy, as riders will have to transfer to other trains at the complex. Councilman Espinal, 33, recalled that he was a regular at Broadway Junction while growing up in nearby Cypress Hills. "It was his first stop on the way to school, work or almost anywhere else. The only way I left the neighborhood was crossing Broadway Junction," he said. Benjamin Kemp has sold snacks outside the Broadway Junction subway station for 5 years. "You could do way better than this," Rudy Fevry, 32, a resident, said in describing the streets around the transit hub. "It's like nobody cares. It was Mr. Espinal who made sure that Broadway Junction was not forgotten as the city laid out plans for the neighborhoods around it. In return for supporting the rezoning of East New York for more affordable housing last year, he extracted a promise from the Economic Development Corporation to look at making long-overdue improvements to the transit hub and surrounding area. "It looks exactly the same as when I was a kid," Mr. Espinal said. "It's been a long time coming. I think this is going to be a turning point." City officials said the Metropolitan Transportation Authority was a partner in their effort to redevelop Broadway Junction, though it was too early to say whether the subway station itself would be renovated. Shams Tariq, a spokesman for the authority, said it works regularly with municipalities to ensure that transit and local development go hand in hand. "We are in conversations with the city on its efforts and are committed to ensuring that our infrastructure and facilities in East New York continue to keep New Yorkers moving," he said. Jeremy Balcom, 27, a bodega clerk who lives nearby, said he hoped for new stores, restaurants and even a theater. "Right now," he said, "he has to take the subway to downtown Brooklyn or Manhattan for a nice evening out. There's really like nothing here now," he said. A 99-cent store is one of a relatively small number of stores operating near the subway stop. "I'm excited to see what this development brings about," said Savas Ioannou, the manager of Paphos Diner. "This neighborhood is ready for change." Others were more skeptical. "It will bring more people," said Victor Velez, a counselor who likes the transit hub the way it is. Julie Luck, 43, said she would rather see the city focus on adding more affordable housing and reducing crime than on bringing in upscale amenities that would be out of reach for many residents. "This is not a destination," she said. "This is a very poor neighborhood. Some people are lucky to have $5 to spend." But Savas Ioannou, 30, the manager of Paphos Diner, which sits beside the transit hub, said that Broadway Junction has been left behind as the rest of the city has been developed, and it is time to catch up. "I'm excited to see what this development brings about," he said. "This neighborhood is ready for change. People are expecting it." New York City officials believe economic development around the station will help neighborhoods that have long struggled with unemployment, poverty and crime. A version of this article appears in print on November 27, 2017, on page 18 of the New York edition with the headline "A Tired Brooklyn Hub Finally Gets Attention."